Hello and welcome to today's lesson. We're going to be talking about topics under the Study Island lesson, complex numbers. So we're going to be looking at questions under that lesson and that correspond to the Algebra 2 standard 1.3b. And so I'm going to be showing you how to do these problems with the TI Plus calculator. I've pulled questions from this lesson that can be done on the calculator. It's always a good idea to know how to do them on pencil and paper also. However, if you need a way to check yourself or a way to fall back on if you get stuck, this is a great tool to use in those scenarios. So the first problem we're looking at is the square root of negative 27. So before we do this, we have to make sure that our calculator is in the correct mode. So I'm going to press mode here by the second button. And I have that A plus BI highlighted. Most calculators come standard with the real highlighted, like I put it back to. If you do that and you try to do these problems, you're going to get error message after error message. You must have that A plus BI highlighted. So you just use your arrows to move over there and press enter. And then once it's in the dark and blackened in like it is on my screen here, then I'm going to press second quit. And it doesn't hurt to leave the calculator in that mode. It's not going to mess up your regular problems. It's only going to help you with these problems. So now I can just type in the calculator what I see on the screen. So I can press second square root negative 27 and press enter, and I get that decimal number. Now the decimal number has an I at the end. So I know that my answer has to have I in it. And so C and D, I don't have that imaginary number I in it, so I know right away it has to be A or B. I have it down to 50-50. And because my answer is positive, and A is negative and B is positive, I'm going to guess that my answer here is B. And the way that you check that for sure is you type this answer into the calculator and see if we get that same decimal as when we press enter. So I'm going to type 3. Now you have to use this I above the decimal, the italicized I, not the green I here. That gives you a capital I and it'll get you the wrong answer. You have to use the italicized I, so it kind of looks the same. So I press 3 second I, and I'm going to press second square root 3, and I press enter, and there it gives me the same positive decimal that ends with the imaginary number I. And so I just double check that my answer is B. Now I look at number 3, and it's saying which of the following is equivalent to I to the 5th. So I'm going to just type that in the calculator and press enter. So I'm going to press second I, and then I'm going to use the caret button to make the exponent, this up arrow. So I press the caret button, and I press 5, and I right arrow out of that, press enter, and that reduces down to I, which was my answer, letter A. And at number 4 here, it's just more the same type of problem. I can press second I, and then I use the up arrow or caret button, and I type 20, and that's all as an exponent. I can see it's tiny. I right arrow out and press enter, and that reduces down to 1, so that means C is going to be my final answer. Number 5, it gets a bit more complicated, but once again, I just use the buttons to type what I see in the screen into the calculator. So I'm going to have a parenthesis, 3I, so I have to use the second button to get the I, end parenthesis, and then up arrow or caret button 4, and I press enter, and that reduces down to 81, so C is going to be my answer. Now I'm looking at problems where I'm subtracting two complex numbers, and once again I'm just going to type in the calculator what I see on the screen. So I'm going to have a parenthesis, and then it's -9, so I need to use the negative button down here, not the minus button. Make sure you keep them straight or you'll confuse the calculator. And then 9 minus, this time I use the minus button, 9 second I, end parenthesis, minus parenthesis, 6 minus 3 second I, end parenthesis. And then I press enter, and there it subtracts the two complex numbers for me, and my answer is negative 15 minus 6i, which is choice C. This question is the same type as the last one, number 7, so I'm going to type parenthesis 8 minus 8 second I, end parenthesis, minus parenthesis negative 8 minus 2 second I, end parenthesis. Once again, I kept track of when to use the negative sign and when to use the minus sign. And I press enter, and that simplifies to 16 minus 6i, which is choice B. Now we're looking at square roots where you are multiplying or distributing. And so I'm just going to type it once again as I see it on the screen in the problem. I'm going to type that into the calculator. So I'm going to press second square root, negative 6, and then I need to right arrow out of that because it's all that's under the first square root. So I need to tell it to stop writing under the square root. And then parentheses, second square root, negative 9, right arrow out to stop writing underneath that square root, minus second square root 3, right arrow out, parenthesis. And I press enter, and I get this really long answer. And so I'm going to, in order to see it all, first I see that the decimal here does not have an I and it's negative. So the part without I is negative. And then the way I use to see this whole answer is I highlight it and press enter. And then it brings it down and shows me the end. So it's a negative number minus a number with an I in it. So I'm going to look for a negative number minus the imaginary number. So here, the real part of the complex number is positive, so it's not going to be A. Here, B, the real part of the complex number is positive, so it's not going to be B. Here, the real part's negative in C and in D. And I look at C, the second part has no I. Here in D, I have subtracted a number with I in it. So because I have a negative number minus an I, this D is probably going to be my answer. But to double check it, I'm going to go ahead and type D into the calculator and see if I get an answer that looks the same. So I'm going to type in negative 3, second square root 6, right arrow, minus 3 second I, second square root 2, right arrow, enter. And there I can see that it matches. And if I want to check that the whole thing matches, once again I just highlight it and press enter, and then I can see that the second part ends in an I and the decimal also matches. So I know for sure that D is going to be my final answer. Now in number 10, I just have a similar multiplication problem, but it has two sets of parentheses in it, which is fine. I'm just going to use the buttons to type it straight into the calculator. So I'm going to have parenthesis, negative 7 minus 4i, so second I, and parenthesis times parenthesis, 6 minus 5, second I, and parenthesis. So once I have it typed in, I press enter. And there, this one, it's able to simplify it down for me to negative 62 plus 11i, which is choice D. Number 11 asks for the product of these two imaginary and complex number. And so product just means to multiply. So I need to know that piece of vocabulary. And once I do, I just type the first number in, 1 minus 8 second I, in parentheses, times, because it says to multiply them by saying the word product, parenthesis 5 second I, end parenthesis, and I press enter, and I can see there that my answer is 40 plus 5i, which is going to be choice D. They just wrote it the other way around, but that's okay because you can add in any order. Now I'm going to be looking at problems where you're dividing. And I know it's division because it says divide, and the fraction bar here means to divide. So remember, I can use the division symbol button here to show the fraction bar. I just need to remember that the numerator always gets put in parentheses and the denominator always gets put in parentheses to tell the calculator it's a fraction. So I'm going to parentheses 2 plus 9 second I in parentheses divide, parentheses 4 plus 3 second I in parentheses, and then I press enter. And I see that it reduces down to 1.4 plus 1.2i. However, that isn't an answer I see here. They leave it in fraction form. So that means I'm just going to have to go through my answers and see which one gives me the same answer when I press enter as I enter it in the calculator. Because this has a plus between the two numbers, I'm going to go ahead and think it's probably not C. So I'm going to try that one out for last, because it has the minus instead of the plus. So I'm going to go back up here and try A. So I'm going to put the numerator in parentheses. So that's going to be parentheses 1 plus 6 second I in parentheses divide parentheses 2 parentheses. And there, that one reduced to 0.5 plus 3i. That doesn't match, so I know it's not going to be A. So I'm going to try B. So parentheses 35 plus 42 second I in parentheses divide 25, and I press enter, and I can see that that almost matches. The first part matches, but not the second part. So it's not going to be B. Like I said, C has that minus symbol, so I'm going to skip down and try D. And so I'm going to put my numerator in parentheses, which is 7 plus 6 second I in parentheses divided by parentheses 5 parentheses. And there I press enter, and if I scroll back up, I can see that those did match exactly the same. So that means D is going to be my final answer. Number 13 is my last problem, and I'm going to go ahead and do the division symbol. So remember, numerator has to go in parentheses and the denominator. So I'm going to parentheses negative 3 plus 7 second I in parentheses divide parentheses negative 3 minus 4 second I in parentheses, and I go ahead and press enter. And once again, that gives it to me in decimal form. But because I'm just wanting it to take it from decimal form to fraction form, I can actually use the calculator to convert it. I can't use the calculator to convert decimals into square roots, which is why before we've had to match them. But if you don't feel like matching them, I can actually go ahead and I'm going to scroll up and highlight the answer and press enter, and that just brings it down. And then I'm going to go to math, and here that first option has an arrow with the fraction with frac after it, which stands for fraction, and the arrow means convert. So this first choice here means convert to a fraction, so I'm going to press enter and then enter again, and that converted my answer from decimal into a fraction. And I can see that negative 19 over 25 minus 33 over 25i is going to be my final answer, which is choice B. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope you learned something new.